Hi everyone, my name is Erin Elizabeth Warenberg. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. Today we are going to be talking about how can we use conflict as an opportunity for closeness. So conflict kind of has a negative connotation from a lot of us, and sometimes we can feel like conflict is just inevitable. It's a part of life. It has to be messy, dramatic, sloppy, horrible, right? But conflict, when done in an appropriate way and with two people or more who are accountable for themselves, who are clear in themselves, it can actually be a really amazing tool for growth and closeness in relationships. And so I want to just talk through how that could be possible for today for a little bit. So first thing we need to think about is, why does conflict happen? So the good news is conflict is, it makes sense. It's normal. If you are a being with your own thoughts, actions, awarenesses, socializations, all of that, and then you are meet up with or have connection with a being who has their own of all those things, then obviously conflict is going to happen. Hopefully you are someone who is independent enough, you have your own opinions, your own thoughts, your own awareness, your own reactions to things. So if you have all that and then you have someone else or more than one person who has all that too, then at some point you're probably going to clash. So that's healthy. It shows that you are your own independent person. It shows that you can think for yourself, that you have your own ideas and values, things like that. So once we understand that conflict is normal, it makes sense for it to just be part of life. Before we can get into like navigating the conflict, if you come up into conflict with someone, you need to ask yourself, is this going to be worth it for me to pursue as like the whole process of conflict resolution? So the first question is to ask yourself, is this going to be worth it? So for example, some of us have been taught or socialized that if we disagree with someone, then we have to fight or make a conflict out of it. So it's up to you what your limit is. If you want to debate with people, if you don't want to debate with people, if you want to talk through things. But, for example, if you and your friend or you and someone you know disagree that like coffee is better than tea, no, tea is better than coffee, that could be a conflict if you let it. That could be an opening point to something very dramatic and more intense. But if you want to decide, okay, I'm just going to let you have your opinion and I'll have mine on something like that, then that's totally fine too. But you have to remember that some people, they do want to fight with that. That is something that does feel like very intense for them. And so just thinking, is this something that is worth it for me to actually engage with that level of conflict or stress or whatever? Is this something that I can just let it be what it is? I don't need to fight about it. Also, if you're driving and someone cuts you off in a lane, do I want to hang out the window and cuss them out and flip them off? Maybe you do. I don't know. It's up to you. But you just have to ask yourself in that moment, is this going to be worth it? What is my relationship with this person? What is the content that I want to debate on? Is my comfort level of speaking about things, like to talk through why we think a certain way, is that coming from a place of conflict, or is it coming from a place of just trying to understand each other better? So that's the first thing we want to think about is this going to be worth it for me or for them, for our time, for our relationship, for whatever? Can I just move on and not think about this any longer? Am I going to make this any more real than this present moment that is happening? Okay, then the next thing we have to think about, so conflict, as we know, isn't just that other person is totally wrong and I'm always right and that's it. Okay, if we're healthy, if we're aware of ourselves and our own patterns, we need to understand that we have our own side of the street to think about, to be aware of, to tap into. We need our own energy that we're connected with. So for this piece, we need to think about, am I energetically healthy enough to have this conflict? And is that person or people or whoever, whatever, are they also energetically healthy enough to have this conflict? So that means, do I want to have it? Am I willing? Do I have the time to have this conversation? Would I rather just sit here peacefully? Is it something that is important enough for me to talk through and debate about? Am I willing to be accountable? So am I willing to reach a point in the conversation where I decide, okay, you know what? I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's resolved for me. I'm done. Or I was wrong and now I'm willing to stop arguing or stop using conflict in that way. And am I willing to be vulnerable? A lot of times, if we are not willing to share what we think, what we feel, where we're emotionally connected to things, then that's where conflict resolution can't really happen, because we aren't willing to be vulnerable or accountable for ourselves. And so you have to think, am I in a healthy enough place to do that? And then also, is this person in a healthy enough place to do that? Because if neither of you, or if not both of you, or only one of you is not in a place with either of those things, then you're just not going to get there. You're just going to hit bumps and keep going over the same points over and over again. And if no one is willing to understand that the point of this is resolution, then nothing's going to happen. And that is the next thing we need to think about, is what is my intention with this? Okay, so are we both trying to have this conversation to find a solution, whether that solution is not changing each other's minds, whether that solution is just to hear each other, to respect what the other person thinks or feels? Is it to get closeness with each other? Or am I engaging in this conflict because I want to be self-righteous, because I want to control the other person, or because I want to have power over the other person? Do I want to talk down to them? Do I want them to tell me you were right, I was wrong? Okay, so you have to check your own intentions with that. And then going one step further, you have to ask yourself, is that other person healthy enough to engage in conflict in that way with me? So we can be so willing, so accountable, so able, so willing to compromise, so willing to listen. But if the other person is just in the conversation or in the debate with you, or trying to talk to you in a way just so their end goal is to be like, I was right, you were wrong, it's never going to work. You're never going to get there. You're going to be so frustrated. There's going to be no compromise. It's going to be like hitting your head against a wall. So this goes back to the first point of, is this going to be worth it? So if this is someone who you have a pattern with, where you can never find a solution, where you're always butting heads, where you're always just, if you feel like you're in a hamster wheel, you're just doing the same dance over and over and over again, then this is someone who you might want to think about, okay, maybe this isn't something that I want to open with that person, because I know that there's not going to be a solution. It's just going to be a power struggle. I'm going to be so exhausted afterwards. It's not going to feel like we actually got anywhere. It's just a struggle for one of us to feel like they're better than the other one of us. And so if you both are not solution oriented, or being willing to be vulnerable, or being willing to, not be self-righteous, then, we gotta stop right there. And then the other thing to think about with this is really noticing, like, we all have core wounds when we're a child. We get wounded in these smaller ways, not smaller, but initial ways. And then as we build up in our lived experiences, when we keep getting rewounded, we get so pissed about something that's a little bit minor and in the present moment, because it's connected to all these other times. So let's say, for example, you have a childhood wound around not being heard. You have a childhood wound that you tried to speak up, but nobody would listen to you. You felt like no one could ever connect to you or hear you. You felt like your caregivers or people who are supposed to look out for you never actually cared to listen to you or get to know you. So if that's your wound, for example, if, let's say, you're at a cash register and you ask for, I don't know, paper bags instead of plastic. I'm just making something up. You asked for paper bags instead of plastic, and then the person bagging didn't hear you, and then they put everything in a plastic bag. It could have just been an honest mistake. But if you have that wounding that no one listens to you, then that can make you flip your shit. If that one little thing happens, you could be like, oh my God, just another incident of someone not listening to me, someone not showing up for me, of not trying to engage with me. And that can make you feel so upset just from this one little thing, because it's so connected to all that stuff. So if you're not aware of your own woundings, or the ways that you feel upset or know you get triggered easily, then when you're engaging with sharing your feelings or trying to communicate with someone, it's going to be harder for you to find resolution, because if you're unaware of all these ways you've been triggered and wounded in the past, you're going to keep bringing up these things that just feel, it could just be making them way more intense, or not being able to separate or even understand, why is this one moment such a big deal? Why is it so intense? And we're not minimizing it. You can have whatever reaction you want to it, but it is helpful to understand that when I don't feel heard, that's when I'm especially triggered, and that's when I feel especially hurt, because it connects to all my other wounding. So again, same thing, you and the person you're in conflict with, it can be very helpful for both of you to be aware of that. Because again, if you're not aware of it, you'll just be talking in circles, and it might seem way more intense than how it needs to be, because neither of you are aware of your huge childhood wounding, or these wounds that have just been bleeding for forever that you aren't aware of or taking care of. So one way you can get more clear about this is, when I get really upset, what do I feel like? So for example, if I get And, if someone cuts me off in traffic, if I get mad in that moment, is it because I don't stand up for myself? Or if my boss always gives work to other employees, is my wound that I feel like, I'm not talented enough to be able to do something on my own? Just getting clear about your own wounding and then recognizing how you're bringing that to the state of conflict can also be very, very helpful. And so after you've done all of that, and there's a lot of awareness in all of that stuff, but after you've done all of that and you are ready to engage in conflict resolution, using it as closeness, um, you have to drop your ego. It's going to be difficult if you haven't spent some time getting to know your shadow self, and I have a video of how to make your ego your bestie if you want to watch that. But just really knowing that when you are ready to move through this conflict with the other person as best you can, you have to be willing to really listen to them. So not they say something and then you get triggered and then you need to defend yourself or fight back or whatever, letting the other person speak and share their piece, and you not interrupting it, but really listening to listen, not to prove a point to them. You really need to, again, acknowledge your triggers, and you need to be honest. So if you're just saying, no, that didn't really bother me, then you're going to get resentful of that person. Or if you are not honest about what you want from this, so maybe you're having a conflict and, at the end, you really want them to change their behavior. You hope that they change their behavior. We can't control anyone, but we know that sometimes if we are engaged with people and, we do want we want the relationship to be different in this way, or you want someone, for example, to ask permission to engage with you in a certain way, and that's what you hope to come out of this conversation, then you need to be honest about that. Because if you're like, I'm fine with whatever, however we decide to move through this, then again, you're going to end up getting really triggered. You're going to end up resenting the other person. You're going to end up, it's going to be a waste of time, basically, because your truth and your honesty is not present, and you're not going to be able to talk through and reach the solution that feels good for the both of you, because you're not even honest about what you want. And then lastly, again, most important thing, you cannot be attached to the outcome. So if you are having this conflict resolution with a person with your intention in mind is to say, okay, I'm going to control their behavior because they're going to listen to me and understand where I'm coming from, and then they're going to be different. Not good. Okay, we have to accept people as they are. Other people have to accept us as we are as well. But when it comes to conflict, if you are engaging with this person for the hopes that, okay, well, when this is over, then we're going to see eye to eye. We're going to have the same results. They're going to come to my side of whatever I think about this, instead of you going into it as being, this needs to be a compromise. This needs to be something that we decide on together. If you aren't willing to be unattached to an outcome, then you're never going to be able to work through the conflict, because you're both going to be so focused on how can I get this person to do the thing that I want. And again, that's not a loving relationship. That's control. That's power dynamics. That's messed up. I mean, obviously, there's certain situations where people can adjust and change to each other, small things. But if you are trying to engage with someone with the very, very deep desire to control them or change them, you are going to end up disappointed more times than not, because we can't control or change anyone. All we can do is know our truth and then recognize, is this something I can handle, or do I need to set a boundary and re-put my energy somewhere else? And the last thing I want to say about conflicts is, this goes back to the first point of, is this going to be worth it? Some things we don't know right away, so it's going to take some trial and error when we're engaging with conflict of people in our lives. But if it is someone who really loves you and cares about you and is willing to work forward to the solution with you because you have a good relationship with them, then that is worth pursuing and engaging with, like, this conflict resolution and using conflict as closeness. However, some people, there's no judgment on them. This was me before I got my shit together. Fighting was normal. So maybe they grew up in a household where fighting was normal. Maybe they learned that the only way to get attention from people that they loved and care about was by fighting or making a big deal. Maybe, oh, this is just how I communicate, by being mean or by calling names, or by everyone has to see things my way because I feel so unheard. So if someone is in that space and you're trying to move through conflict with them, you have to get clear of where are they energetically in their own spiritual journey. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that, something's wrong with you because you have this conversation with someone who can't reach resolution. But you do need to be honest and think, first of all, am I someone who needs to have arguments and conflict in my life because I was taught that chaos is normal? And then second of all, is So if you're like, okay, no, I'm good, I'm clear, I'm doing my shit, I'm working through it, okay? And then you need to think about, is the other person, is conflict normal for them? Is that something that they want in their life always? Is that something that no matter what we do, no matter how many times we have this conversation, there's just always gonna be a fight about it? So maybe their hidden thing is they do wanna control you, or it could just be that they wanna fight with you. So every day it's a new fight, or it's a new fight about something else, or there's always something happening where it feels like a fight's going on. So you need to get clear that maybe that person, you can't have their relationship in the same way. I'm not saying you have to cut these people out completely or anything like that, but you do need to do a lot of self-reflection and internal work and get clear about, is this someone who there's always going to be a fight, there's always going to be something dramatic, they're going to blow up about something that I don't even know what it is, but I know it's going to happen. If that's what's happening because they just believe that, you know, that's how people communicate with each other, then you need to really do the hard inner work and ask yourself the questions of, is this something that I want to maintain in my life? Is this a relationship that is going to be worth me maintaining because this and this thing always happens? Or there's actually no real conflict resolution. There's no chance to use conflict as closeness because the person is just addicted to fighting, addicted to drama, addicted to talking shit about people, addicted to this chaotic energy. And so if that is a place that someone is in, you need to be honest about that. And you need to then ask yourself, okay, if this is the energy that person is bringing into my life, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to heal? Am I going to practice finding peace? Because if we are not peaceful within ourselves, then we will put up with chaos around us. And so it's up to you to decide what is your own individual limit and what can you do to stand up for yourself, to set boundaries, to readjust the relationship based on if it's serving you or not. Okay, that's everything I have for you. I hope this video served you. So again, a lot of internal work, a lot of reflection. Everything is case by case, just like always, everything I talked about. So you just need to tap in and listen to your own wisdom, your own intuition, your own guidance in order to be able to get clear about things that are or are not serving you and what that can actually mean for you in terms of showing up or not showing up. Okay, so I wish you all the best. You deserve to have a conflict-free life. Not conflict-free in terms of like, you know, never disagreeing with someone about anything ever, but you deserve to have, because conflict is not abuse, it can be very helpful, it can be very intentional, but you deserve to have a life free from toxic conflict, from toxic disagreements, from never-ending hamster wheel fighting bullshit. Okay, so thank you so much. If you ever want any information about me or you want to work with me one-on-one, all that information is linked below in the description box. And thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful day.